Hello, I'm Jeremy, and today I'm going to show you a game by the name of Texas Showdown. This is a trick-taking game published by Amigo Spiel. Designer is Mark Major, and it is published in Germany. I was able to import a copy from Amazon Germany, and I was able to print English rules off of the publisher's website. Nothing in the game is language dependent. The rules are available on the publisher's website, so feel free to import this. This is a trick-taking game with a unique twist. You want to be the person to take the fewest tricks over the course of the game. And it has some unique dynamics, which I'll show you how they work in a moment. The box says ages 10 and up for 3 to 6 players. I'll talk about player count after I show you how the game works. Texas Showdown comes with a deck of 60 cards, and this is an unusual deck. This is the German rule set, but there are English rules on the publisher website. But you can see here that the 60 cards in this deck are broken down into 8 suits, and each suit has a different range of numbers within it. So no numbers within that 60 cards is going to be repeated within any of the suits. So in practice, what that looks like is something like this. You can see that each card has a number on it, and the color indicates the suit, although there are colorblind friendly icons for the suits as well. What you'll notice is on, let's see, here we have several cards in the same suit. They have on them an indicator of A, how many cards are within that suit, so you know that there are 8 brown cards. And this little thermometer on each card shows you how high within that suit this card is. So we could see that this 34 is a middle card within the suit, where as the 36 is higher up. So if you only had the 36, you'd know where within the range that 36 felt, which is important because this is a trick-taking game. Also, the highest card in each suit, you can see as on this 47, has the thermometer completely filled up with the number colored in. That's also important for gameplay reasons. So the gameplay in this almost couldn't be simpler. This is a trick-taking game, and I set up here just a sample round or two for 3 players. So obviously players would keep this hand of cards secret, but it's going to work largely like a lot of familiar trick-taking games, with the exception being that you don't want to take tricks. So let's say this was our start player and they had to lead the trick. They would throw a card in, and then other players, in turn order, would each have to play 1 card following suit if they could. So this player only has 1 orange card. They might play that 20 onto the 13 of orange. And this player, they have 2. They have a 15 and an 18. Maybe they would choose to play their 18. They want to get rid of their highest card because the goal is not to take tricks. So now this player here played this orange 20, so that's going to be the highest card. They're going to have to take the trick, and every trick that you take is essentially a point. You don't want to have points. At the end of the game, whoever has the most points is going to be the loser. So the catch is that this player, you can see the 20 here has the full thermometer, so it's the highest card within the trick. The catch is if ever you take a trick with the highest card, you have to take the trick as normal, but then you get to determine which player is going to lead. So maybe this player would choose this player to lead, so they get the last play for the trick. So maybe this player would then play this 15, which would force this player to play the 17. It's their only card within suit. And now it comes back to this player who doesn't have any orange cards, so now they have the option to throw off and not follow suit. So they might get rid of a high card. So now this player here, which played the 17, would have to lead because they won the trick and they did not do that with the highest card. So they would get this trick, and now they would have to play a card to follow. So now what would happen, let's say that they would play this 54, right? So now this player here, they don't have yellow, just like they didn't have orange a moment ago. So they could play another card. So let's say they play this 21. Now, here's where this game gets interesting. So now there are 2 suits out on the table. So this player here, who has both yellow and blue, could follow either of the colors that have been played so far. So whenever it comes around to you within the trick, you could play any color that's been played, whether it's the opening suit or any suit that's been thrown off. And that's a change from most trick-taking games. And so if this player played this 27, what would happen is, even though yellow was the trick that, or the suit that had led the trick, the trick that is or the suit that's awarded the trick is actually going to be the color that has the most cards in the pool at the end of the trick. So by playing this 27, they would trigger that blue gets the trick, and they would have to take it. But, like I said, they have the other option, which would be to play their yellow card. And in that case, yellow would take the trick, and they don't have... Their 53 is lower than the opening card of 54, so this trick would go to that player. And that is largely the biggest wrinkle of this game. Otherwise, it's just a normal trick-taking game. So, like I said, this is only 5 cards that I dealt out per player, but each round you're going to deal out all cards to all players till all of your deck of cards is gone. And then you'll just play until you're out of... tricks, until every player is out of cards, and then you'll just count up how many tricks each player has taken. So that's going to be their score for their round. And then you are just going to play rounds until some player meets the threshold score to trigger the end of the game. And you can see here with 3 players, you go to 15 points, or 4 players also, 5 players, 12 points, 6 players, 10 points. Once somebody hits that number of points, whoever has the fewer points is going to be the winner of Texas Showdown. Okay, so that is Texas Showdown. This is a very simple game. It's certainly one that you could explain to practically anyone, but it is also a game with a lot of unique features, as I think you have just seen. So first of all, unlike a lot of trick-taking games, it's hard to say what a good card is in this, because even the highest card within a suit could give you the power to determine when you're going to play in turn order, which is super powerful in this game, because although in most trick-taking games, it's great to be able to lead a suit most of the time and determine which way the round is going to play out, unless you're going to end up taking a trick because everybody throws out. Here, that dynamic really shifts up, because sometimes it's very much best to be the last person in the trick order, because you then get to determine not only what suit is going to take the trick, but possibly who's going to be taking the trick. Again, that's a dynamic that exists in some trick-taking games to certain degrees. You could choose to play above or below the leader, but usually that just entails you and the leader of the trick at the time that you're playing that final card. So here the dynamic is a little bit more broadened out. You could sometimes, especially like in a 3-player game, you could determine which of the other 2 players might take the trick by choosing which card you play if there are 2 different suits present. But of course you can't force the other players to throw off, and they can only do that if they can't follow suit. So there is some strategic planning in how you're going to use your hand to try to be able to be in a position where you can throw off as often as possible, which is really what you want to be doing in this game. So it has this interesting dynamic to it. Something else that's interesting is that at 3 players, it's a very binary thing where generally the first 2 players might throw 2 different suits, especially near the end of the round, and then the 3rd player is in a kingmaker position oftentimes. But with more players, and I think this game probably plays... It's an interesting game at 3, I would say. With 4, you often get into a situation where you're going to have ties with 2 tricks of each color in the position. I don't think I mentioned it in my rules video, but where that's the situation, simply the higher number on the table will take it, regardless of suit. So if it's a tie for suits, the number breaks the tie. But then with 5 or 6 players, you can have 3 or more suits in the mix. And that really changes up the dynamic. And that's, I think, where this game becomes most exciting. I would say 5 or 6 players is probably the optimal player count for it, because it's really swingy, really variable. What the first player plays is not hugely determinant of how the rest of the trick is going to be playing out. And that's unusual for a trick-taking game for certain. And I think that most trick-taking games, I would say, this is a broad statement, but I think the majority of trick-taking games play best with 4 players. So to have a trick-taking game that really plays best with 5 or 6 players is terrific. There are a few others, but this is definitely one of the better ones at that player count. So the box says that it takes about 45 minutes to play, and I found in practice that's a little bit shorter. It's once players get a hang of it, they're going to be playing pretty quickly, I find. It's not a game that's going to inspire a lot of analysis paralysis. The only caveat is, it might take players, because of how unique the mechanics are in the game, it might take players a round or 2 to really get a hang of how to play their way out of a hand that seems bad at the start of it. I've seen players get trapped where they just keep taking trick after trick, and in a game where you're only playing to 15 points or so, even at max player count, that could be dangerous. So you might want to take a moment to just explain what the implications of playing a card are. Explain the importance of being able to get out of a suit with a high number and shift over who's leading the trick, and so on, if players aren't familiar with trick-taking games. But at the same time, I think a lot of the fun and discovery of this game is how quirky it is, and trying to figure out what a good strategy is going to be half the fun of playing this game, just because it requires a fresh approach to trick-taking. In a genre that's really crowded, there's dozens and dozens of trick-taking games that are worth playing. This one really stands out as something that's pretty unique. So I would say, for the price, which is under 10 euros, it's well worth getting. I'm not crazy necessarily about the card art and the theme, but it almost doesn't matter. It's no worse than a standard deck of playing cards. I wish that, for how important the information on the side, which shows you, the number of cards in the suit, and then the rank within the suit. I almost wish that were more clearly presented, and the backs of the cards, I'll just point out, are not really inspired, but they're fine. It doesn't really matter. But those are minor complaints about what is a really unique, really worthwhile trick-taking game. Those are my thoughts on Texas Showdown. Thanks for watching.